Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Yay. This is Syya.
And I'm Erin Gregor.
And we are the co-hosts of the Afterglow Live Recap podcast. So what are we recapping? We are recapping the weekly Global Leaders Organization speaker series. And basically, we are going to be recapping Keith Alper this week. He is the founder of many different companies. He's also a prolific author and speaker. So today, we are excited to welcome back Rashmi Malhotra. She is the founder CEO of Affinity Technology Solutions. Rashmi, welcome back to Afterglow.
Thank you so much, Syya and Erin, for having me again and for giving me the opportunity to get dressed up.
Isn't that the funny thing? Is like
the little things in life.
Well, did you guys remember, like, growing up, the best advice people were giving us was saying, dress for the part you want or the role you want. Yeah. And this whole pandemic to me is like dress for comfort because we're in the long haul. I feel like.
Well, the rule used to be like always have on good underwear too, like in case like you get in an accident or something, and like you don't even have to follow. I mean, something could happen at your house, but you don't even have to follow that rule anymore either.
Exactly. So, I mean, I did put some makeup on because I have respect for people that have to look at this noggin. But yeah, in general, oh my gosh, you guys, it's a good day when I've got like an unwrinkled t-shirt on. So we digress. Who do we have today? Keith Alper. So, I gotta tell you guys, when I look at a lot of these speakers, they all have so much high energy, and I have to wonder, is it manufactured or is innately in you? First question I have is, for these types of personalities who are on the speaker series around leadership and, how to, run a more efficient organization or a more efficient team, do you think having that high energy in your face type of personality is a requirement?
I don't think it's a requirement, but I'll tell you, I think a lot of it, you ask, is it a natural or is it a manufactured, for lack of a better term? But I mean, I've been to events where they teach you how to manufacture it, how to, like, there's a saying, I love Brendan Burchard, like the power plant doesn't have energy, I can't even believe I can't remember it. It generates it. Power plant generates. So a lot of this is they're doing this on purpose and generating it. I don't think you need to be like blah, because even like I never would look at Steve Jobs as a blah kind of guy, but you have to be willing to lead. I just think it could be different personality types. I think confidence is probably one of the most important factors, whether you shout it or say it semi-softly, as long as you have it, right?
Yeah, I think your confidence is huge, huge, huge. Rashmi, you are a leader of an awesome tech company. Let me ask you, as far as you are an outgoing personality, what do you think about confidence, energy with leadership?
I think whatever you do, be your authentic self. And I think if you show up as in my case, I love people. And I love being around people, be it like this, it doesn't matter to me, but it's the energy that I get from people and the energy I give to people. To me, that is what true, it's not even leadership, but it's a true you. However, I do think for a lot of these mega speakers, they have to do that to engage and keep the audience engaged. So I think it's for a period of time, and after that they crash. If you've seen some of these big speakers, but yes, they come on strong and they leave strong, and then they rejuvenate themselves. It's like always that story. You have to keep, putting in what you want to give out, and so I really do. I love that energy, but I have to say I can only take it for so long, because after that, then you kind of tap out of it. But that's it. Those are my thoughts. Yeah.
I almost feel like, and I'm probably going to be counter, guys, and I'm a high energy person. I get it. But having that level of 10 all the time, it's almost like, I feel like writing in all caps, it's almost overwhelming in the long term. I think you have to vary it, but I don't know. Some people are just like that. you know what I mean? Which is not a bad thing. It's overwhelming sometimes. You're right. So, so with Keith, he wrote a book. It's called Like to Love, how to get employees to go from, liking their time at a business company to loving it and being, the most loyal cheerleaders for an organization. He made a statement, which I thought was interesting. He says in his book, Like to Love, first and foremost, you have to be authentic and you have to care for your clients and people. What does care about clients and people mean to you, Rashmi?
Well, I always look at a situation, or I look at people and say, how would I like to be treated? So how do you treat somebody, or how do you care for somebody? I think it comes back to how is it that you want to be cared, and how do you want to be respect is underlying. You start with respect. Trust is built over time. But I really believe, again, and I'm going to keep going back to this, because if you show up with your authentic self, then you're bringing the people into you, and they're bringing you into them. So it's really getting to know more about them, hearing what they have to say, and I'm sure later on in the podcast we'll be talking about. But people want to be recognized, and I think that all kind of comes back into how do you care for them, and just keeping in touch.
Keeping in touch. Erin, what do you think about care?
Well, I think it's, that, like Rashmi said, there's the authentic piece of it. I think it's just so important that customers and employees, are they just a dollar sign to you? Are they just there to make you money? And, there has to be a line. You as a leader can't be walked all over, right? You have an employee who's not really working, or there's a line. But I think too, there's so much to having compassion. Like maybe an employee isn't performing, but they have a great record of performing. Well, you find out something's going on in their life because you're authentic, because you care. Well, give them that grace, give them that opportunity to fix what's happening behind the scenes and come back versus, being cutthroat. And I think the same is with clients. Like right now, maybe you have to lend a hand more than you would for free before, right? Maybe you have to say, hey, we'll let this bill slide for another 30 days. I know you're going through some stuff, or you know what? I know you're getting yourself in a better position. We're willing to help you out with that. But it's looking at the relationship. It's looking at it further than just you're dead to me. You're no good to me right now because you're not making any money for me. And, moving on and cutting relationships short because it's just so short-sighted.
So that's a great segue, Erin. I quoted him on this because it struck me like kind of close. He said, all relationships have emotional deposits and debits. So when you're saying that, okay, if you're not buying from me, you're dead to me. It's almost like you're making the relationship a transaction and not an actual long-term committed dance, if you will. So how have you seen, Rashmi, in your best relationships that you've had with individuals, how would you define deposits and debits in your experience?
It comes back to what we're talking about here, care, and Erin, you're absolutely right. We don't know what everyone's going through, so it's really important to spend time with people, to know what's going on, to let them share what's going on, and respect. When we start a relationship with respect and mutual respect, to me that is a great way to deposit energy into that relationship. And there's always the time in every relationship, whether it's a personal or a business, we all want to kind of feel like we're part of a family. So there's going to be times when people are going to be in need, and we need to be there for them. And then, when the times are good, then we're depositing. So it's not there's no such thing. If you value a relationship, it's a long-term relationship. It's not short-term. And if it's only financially driven and it's short-term, well, then that's the purpose of it. And I don't call that a relationship. I just call that, I don't know, perhaps, Erin, you said it's a transaction. That's what it is. It's a transaction. So relationships have their ups, their needs, whether things are going well, and then they have times when they need to continue to be built. So that's, to me, that's what deposits and extractions mean.
I just made me think of like the banking analogy here is, I think when the long-term a committed relationship, not personally, but professionally as well, is like it's with the deposits and debits, there's interests that are accrued. So if you aren't making a transaction, interest does accrue for you to benefit the relationship, such that if there is a big withdrawal or a big deposit, there's still cushion, if that makes sense. I could go down this analogy pit and I bury myself.
I think too, what's important, like I remember when I was running one of my companies well, actually several where my employees were customer facing. Like I remember I set a rule, like if there's one thing that gets under my skin, it's people who feel they're above other people. I just can't take it. And it was, I had a hard, fast rule always. If you treated my employees like they were beneath you, like your money wasn't good to us. Like we didn't want your money. And so by protecting my employees, there were a couple situations where I was just like, it was like a really bad breakup with the client. Cause I'm like, I won't tolerate this. Goodbye. And when you saw their true colors, it was done. But by doing that, my employees always showed I had their back. Right. Like, and that was really depositing into that. And therefore they had my back. And it was, they would go the extra mile for me, or they would do the things like, hey, I need you to cover this or whatever. And because of that, it was that, and I didn't do it just to have their back, but I wanted them to feel like I was always there for them. It wasn't just you're making me money. It was, I want you to enjoy this. I want you to like Rashmi said, this is a family. This is something much more than just a job. And you have to think of things like that. Like, how am I letting them know that I actually care for them? Am I asking them how they are? Am I genuinely listening to what's going on and how they are? And it's just, it can be those little things. We sometimes think it has to be this big production, but it's those little things that, to see his bank analogy, it's not depositing the $1 million check one time in your life. It's depositing the dollar every day, right? So how can you find ways to make those small deposits act like you care? Because you may think it's small, but to them, it could be a really big deal, and it matters a lot.
You just made me think of and I'm totally segueing, I get it. But you know how you see a lot of these like posts on Facebook or any other social media where there's like, share this, to bring awareness to like suicide prevention, for example. Sometimes it's just that smile in that day to a random individual that makes their entire day. And I think that I really like that you said that, Erin, like it's $1 a day versus that $1 million deposit. That matters to most people, I think.
Yeah, I always give it, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I feel like every week I'm always like, I was listening to a podcast and I got this idea, but I loved it because this girl was saying how she makes it a goal, and I'm getting better about this, but 2 people a day, just 2 people a day. And she calls them or texts them and says like, I don't expect a response. I'm not asking for that. I just want to see how you're doing today. Like, I just was thinking of you and just wanted to say I'm thinking of you and just see how you're doing. And if you need anything, let me know. But very simple. And it takes her 5 minutes. And it's very sad as it comes out of my mouth. I can't find the time to do this. But anyway, but I thought, I'm like, just so simple, like so simple. And yet, can have such a huge impact.
Yeah, can I just, Erin, thank you. That is something that I really resonate with. Sometimes, do you just have this desire that you need to connect with someone? You need to call someone? See, that's your intuition. And when they answer the phone or they hear your voice message and they call you back and they say, I just needed to hear from you today. To me, and especially that's one of the things that I'm tapping into a lot more because, he was talking about what are some of the things you're doing since March. And I'm sorry, Syya, I'm kind of taking over and digressing a bit.
Oh,
but,
go.
But that's just one of those things that I'm loving because, tapping into my intuition and making time for those conversations and making time for those chats and really reconnecting. Great point. Thank you, Erin, for raising that.
It's so funny because for many of us, everything that our relationships have moved to this format where everyone's seeing each other via camera now. It is interesting. I have started doing that. I wish I was more consistent about it, but I did start texting random people that I have not talked to in months just to say hi. And it is interesting because people do respond and they're like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, nice to hear from you. So it's a good reminder of that. The other thing to go back, so Dan LeBrod, he had mentioned about those little gestures and being aware and listening to the team. Have you guys ever experienced it where, in his case, he had said that an employee of a client yelled at one of his employees for whatever reason, and he actually ended up telling that client employee that was unacceptable behavior? How have you stepped up or, stepped up to the bat, if you will, in defense of an employee? Or how did you address a situation where maybe your employee might have deserved it? Maybe they dropped the ball somewhere.
So, well, I gave the example, like I said, it was, they were there were several scenarios. One scenario I could think of, they were just berating my employee and I fired them as clients. But other situations too, if they made people feel uncomfortable or if anything, again, it was just, sorry, we won't do business. But, and we did have to step in and with employees too and say, yeah, you were wrong. And, either correct or fire in the other case too. So, it wasn't just it was a whole picture. Rashmi, I don't know about you.
Yeah. This is, and I love what Dan said he did. He actually, contacted the person, heard their side of the story and told them, how that behavior impacted his employee and the morale of the team. And, I think that's the key thing in it all. It's really just hearing all sides, because we all carry baggage. We carry baggage into conversations. We carry baggage from, during the night or, evening to morning. And it's really just contacting everybody concerned and finding out what's going on. And, in situations that I've seen, I've asked, if they want to address the behavior themselves. If not, then I will. But I think giving them also the opportunity to address it, to apologize and share what's going on. I think it's a big thing. At the end of the day, we all want to be treated like adults and we want to treat people like adults. And so I always look at it, how do I want to be treated? And how do I want, and again, as I said, I love what Dan did. He contacted the person. Many times we don't take the time and effort to reach out and find out what's going on. And I'm just going to go on mute because I hear my lot of people are out there. Don't you just love it? It's
That's okay. Hey, that's what live stream is all about. Dogs, children, and gardeners coming in right at that perfect time, or UPS delivery, another personal favorite of mine. So here's something that we're going to wrap up here with, we got a few minutes. I got a little bit more time. He actually made a suggestion about writing down 50 things that you've learned since March. I thought this was so interesting because how many times have you guys have written anything of like, I learned this today, or acknowledge that you have gained some semblance of wisdom over the course of any time of our life? Have we written anything down? Do you guys do any of this?
Yes, every day.
Okay, maybe I'm a slacker here. How do you do it then? Because to me, I was kind of like, it was a light bulb moment for me of realizing, wow, I didn't think about this.
Yeah, I write it at the moment, and at the end of the day, I look at what I've written, or maybe if I don't have time in the moment, I write it when I'm thinking about it. To me, that's it's like an afterglow of something good that's happened. That's what I call my glow or afterglow, is when something's happened that I want to remember. I write that down, and we're teaching actually the kids to do that too, because it's really hard to remember at the end of the day. What was the best thing that happened to you today? Don't you just, well, I shouldn't say, it just kind of forces you at that time, you really have to sit and think, oh, what exactly happened? But if during the day you've recognized it, it becomes a lot easier over time. So.
Yeah, there's I found with kids, they say stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing you've said. I'm never gonna forget that. And then to Rashmi, like 2 hours later, I'm like, what was that thing you said? It was super funny. But I'm in a habit of, I do journal, not every day. But I feel like quarantine or COVID, everything was a giant spotlight that was just kind of like shining on all the things that weren't great in my life. Let's put it that way. And, before you could get busy and you could like not face them, where you really, like, I had to face them and it was very uncomfortable for a while. But that has been truly what I've taken advantage of this and saying, okay, what do I want? What are the things I don't like and how can I fix those? And so, yeah, for me, it has been a big reflection. Another idea, you're going to be shocked, I got this from a podcast, but this is a very old idea. But if you need that help, we did this for several years, but you create a jar and you can just put like a jar with paper on the side of it in the middle of like the kitchen or something like that. And you have like, okay, the things that went really well today, or like something great that happened for one of us, something great that we did, and you do it for a whole year and you just write it on the slip and deposit it. And it's really fun to go back and look at those things because you feel like in that moment, you're just never going to forget it. It's such a great moment. And then you go back, you're like, oh, I totally forgot about that. So it's just, and it's in your face. So it's always there to remember it. So it's just another practice if you need kind of a kickstart.
That is a great idea. I think is that the similar concept of like being grateful at the end of the year and then you read it together about what you appreciate and love.
Yeah.
You guys know my family. If we did something like that, I don't know if we could keep a straight face. Okay, so
just one little thing. I forgot to kind of mention this earlier. I think rewarding and recognition of people is huge. And I think when we were talking about depositing, I just wanted to just highlight that. To me, that is like one of my favorite things to do is to reward and recognize. Be it that I love to do it with wine, but I wanted to share that before the time was out.
So can I just tell you, Daniel's like nice champagne this morning, and I'm like, I know, right? Thanks for the invite, Rashmi.
I have a revolving door. Anytime we can do this podcast from here.
That's true. Erin, road trip. So we'll just drink out of straws. Okay, so let's bring it down a little bit to something very serious, and it's very relevant right now, and that is a diversity conversation. So in the Q&A, someone had asked Keith, so one of the things that he's done in his organizations is, he has groups that highlight, let's say, if they're African American or a women's group or an Asian American group. And that was to promote conversation, recognize diversity, etc. Someone asked a really interesting question, which is, when you do that, when you have groupings like that, right, when you have identifiers, how do you get past identity politics, where there is a sense of exclusion by addressing inclusion, if that makes sense? So if you're part of an Asian group, how does one open it up such that someone like Erin feels comfortable and welcome to that kind of group? So it's a tough question. And his response was, there is the reality of, yes, there is a difference, but to make it purposeful and intentful, that everyone's coming together. So it's meant to be more of an education, but also a celebration of commonality. How do you feel about those types of identified groups, if you will? And do you think that increases diversity, or do you think it might somehow build a wall, if you will? It's a long question, you guys, and it's a hard one.
Well, the only thing I can speak of is the women's side, right? I'm obviously very vanilla, but from a perspective of, it is really nice to have that women's group, not because I hate men and I'll think they should, obviously I love men too. I married one. So but it's just nice to be surrounded with that group too. And I think we as women can do, and I've benefited from the diversity training from other things that I've done that I didn't even know I was doing, or lack of things that I did do that I didn't realize that my silence was harming others. So that's a really hard question. And, with my experience, I can't speak a ton to it. However, to your point, I think there's power to having the groups, but how do those groups interact? Is it we're women, we hate men, or is it we're women, we're empowering each other? And maybe sometimes it's just educating men on what the difference is, or why we have our own group, or why it's important to us, or why, certain ethnicities have their own groups. I can see why it's very important for them to have that group, but how, like, to your point, how can you include others without being, that guy that has to show up just because they don't, the guy who has to show up to the women's group and then fight it because it's anti-sexist, whatever it is, that stuff drives me nuts. So I don't know. There's a weird line, and I don't know how to draw it.
So can I share some thoughts here?
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
you're done. Bye.
Okay.
Of course, Rashmi. Of course.
And this has been something that I've been aware of for the 30, 35, I'll stop right there, years of being in the work world, corporate world, and being a woman and visible minority. I think that the thing, and you hit it to some degree, Erin, on why these groups are important. I am part of for Affinity. Affinity is a women-owned business, and we are certified and registered as a women-owned business, and we're partnered with our company that's a minority business, and we love that. In today's day and age, diversity and inclusion is key, because I think successes happen that are beyond imaginable successes that companies and people don't understand until everyone comes together. So I apologize. That's it'll just be a second. But what I wanted to say is, we're doing this at Boise on my wine business side, and it's really about coming together. And Amazon does this very, very, very well. They have all these different groups, these different diverse groups, and it's all it covers diversity to a T. But these groups, what they do is they bring education back to Amazon, or you bring education back, like we're doing with Boise, back to the masses, to the employees, to the partners, and and to our clients, and and beyond. You're bringing the education back, but more importantly, you're celebrating the differences that then bring the inclusion together. So it is, to me, it's a fantastic way of collaboration that happens. These groups continue to drive ideas, to drive programs that then, as a whole and as a large, the company can embrace. Because one thing that I do love that Keith said, it really does start with your employees first. You cannot do anything. It's the same thing. it's everything starts with you first. So this is a very important subject, near and dear to my heart, and I could go on forever, but I'm going to stop now. So thank you.
No, I think that's such a valid point. I was struck by that. Keith had said, this conversation is definitely a deeper conversation, not something that you could just, do in 2 minutes or so. But he said, and I really liked it. He goes, you guys, this conversation about diversity, inclusion in general, it's an and, not an or, meaning I have a pink shirt team, blue shirt team, and a yellow shirt team doesn't necessarily mean that they don't talk or congregate. It's, and how about combination of the pink and blue and the yellow shirts together? What can we do as a result of it? And Egbert Lim, shout out here, he actually said multiple facets of thought processes collaboratively working together to achieve great results. If we have people with different ideas and viewpoints, it actually almost makes a hard cube with hard edges into a perfectly round circle, right? It softens up with each perspective to kind of make it something a little bit more rolling friendly, if that makes sense. So on that note, you guys, we have run long a little bit, but Rashmi, so much thank you as always for joining us, and thanks for pinch hitting in. Cheers to you. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you, Rashmi, how can they get a hold of you?
Okay, it's Rashmi at Affinity Technology Solutions.com, and my number is 214-632-7266.
Somebody's calling you, right? Or texting
already
you right
go
now.
Girl.
Thank you.
They're saying, they're like, do you really want to give out your phone number already?
Oh yes. I the power of a conversation, there's nothing like it,
especially now at this day and age, right?
Yeah.
Erin, and what about us?
Yeah, so I'll do the we're the Dallas co-chairs of GLO. This is after GLO, so every Thursday GLO's been doing events. We actually are going to be extremely responsible of this for Premier members in a couple weeks. Again, everything panning out, we'll see. But are planning to do an in-person meeting for our live event, for our monthly event. So if you're a Premier member, make sure you join us. But if you want to check out more about what GLO is about, head over to withglo.com. And you can sign up for these. You get 2 free sessions that you can watch from all these Thursdays. I'm going to tell you, you're going to learn a ton in just 2, and then learn more about joining us at a premium level.
Exactly. So next week we've got Ford Sakes, who's joining us. He's going to be focused on engaging, leading, and growing. He is quite another dynamic speaker. He really has a great pulse. He has an amazing way of integrating the audience into conversations. So if you would like to get maybe highlighted, Ford Sakes is going to definitely bring it home to you. I think the last time I saw him once before, he pointed out how I needed to improve my own website, and it was very enlightening. I'll tell you that much. So on that note, Erin and I are with Innovation Media Enterprises. We strategize and produce podcasts for both businesses as well as for personal branding. Rashmi Malhotra with Affinity Technology Solutions. I think, guys, we'll wrap it up for another episode of After GLO. Have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.